gonna just celebrate that. Oh, you are. I know. I was holding my tongue from saying something super snarky. You'd be not only here, but early. Just kidding.
I'll take it. I'll take it. How can you understand? I'll try and miss it this one. I would have a what questions? Maybe I just would like to be other.
I can't even get the toolbar.
Like so anxiety. My friend might be able to rate. He's an expert. Yes, like he did not bring his art suit with him. So they have an art suit. They put on and they go disconnect. So the fire was. Well, they have an art suit. Blue. Which means you have to leave it on fire for an hour. So come to short up. You can only imagine a day.
After that.
Because we're worried about all the.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Well, how are you?
Good, we went for Saturday.
It was quite a lot. You were there for
Me? Mine's in, yeah, mine's in there.
When we walked out of the building.
She went over there. She usually, we usually put ours in the fridge, so. I think you're
It
fine.
wasn't really. She hasn't, Cox made a lot of lies.
She doesn't want it in the
Just
fridge.
mad that people didn't like him. There were some people who did.
Everything's.
It wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. There was a house, I would say 25%.
Was at 5 floor.
The only person, people using vulgarity were the commissioners in Garfield.
Oh, right.
There's a car company with the budget, so we fix it.
I'll say that again.
The only people who used profanity were the commissioners in Garfield.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so
Good.
they all staged
Little busy.
to try and put a hole in the pocket.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they had their presses ready to go.
I'm like, I'm surprised you're here after all of the stuff of the last like 48 hours.
It's still going.
What one? Oh, yeah, the Lehigh, what do you? Finally, somebody did it. That's weird.
They just need to start from the beginning.
So we're trying to figure out what we're doing.
Yeah.
Orem, Vineyard, Linden,
PG.
and PG.
Don't drag BG in there. Giant boat anchors around our neck.
Oh, leave Vineyard alone, yeah, he does.
PG doesn't want to be with us anyway.
No, they don't.
Yeah, so we don't want to be there.
Stayed on
End up with morons like bugles.
I was reading in the news, and I'm like, yeah, Lehigh girls.
It's funny, you know, it's a
But when they do it, they get crucified, right?
It's like totally bipolar.
I would have ever thought
Every
this
other
was where
statement is the opposite of what you just said.
like now.
But the school's coming.
Yeah. The way it's. All should do.
It was a good meeting.
It was an interesting meeting last night.
I'm just kidding.
Because then I watched it like midnight last night, that's how it finally got posted.
You wanna get?
Sure, thanks.
They met with AFC yesterday. But yeah, the city council and ASD got together and had a conversation.
Salt Lake.
They need us now?
No, I think they're, that's spinning because they are.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
You're making me look bad because I just got up and going.
No, thank you.
Didn't offer you.
Yeah, I did not. So I said, Dave's making me look bad.
So, no,
Oh, we can start.
just curious.
You?
Who spoke in terms of, Lee spoke, it seemed like Lee spoke.
Better go watch it.
Nope.
Better go watch
I had
it.
too long.
But you can, it was interesting, kind of everyone's side, but the
Regretting it, of course.
ASD's going through their process and obviously we're trying to step in.
Yeah.
I've seen your one, right?
Teachers.
No, yeah, you know, there was put a big hole in DPI and ESG.
It's
Be
really,
nice when I pitch for that.
Natural
Yeah.
resources and stuff, you
and
know.
probably should, yeah, we'll start when you get back around.
Oh, yeah, I have that.
Oh,
Yes, a number of them.
Planning combinations, you look at like.
The biggest, best features, Carson.
That's right.
I do.
School things go a little bit.
Carson Jordan's one of the best.
We should have got more than 25%, that's my opinion, yep. But we need to start our meeting, because it is now 3:34. So I will call our pre-meeting to order, and we'll begin by a quick review of our agenda.
Right, so for the community, we have how the public is noticed regarding upcoming projects, and then Gary was going to continue his planning commission training, but that is not right, because Gary's not here today, so.
So, I thought it mattered.
Matter, you gonna talk about?
Yeah,
items?
Yeah, we'll start with the notice and see how that goes.
Okay, so this handout that I've given you is kind of a recap of how we notice and for what projects. So for an example, if you do a conditional use, it would be a neighborhood meeting, but they would have to be noticed 500 to 1,000 feet. What would determine that is if it was multifamily. If it's multifamily, then it's 1,000 feet. If it's single family, then it's 500 feet. Mailings, those are the postcards that you get. Those could go 1,000 feet out, and then the sign, this is which is posted on the property. This beautiful sign, and then on the back is information about the project. So those get.
I never knew those were on the back. I've seen those before, but I've never
Stop to get out.
knew there was anything on the back, yeah. Well, you just drive by and see the
Oh,
public
yeah, all you
notice,
see is
right?
public notice.
Or you drive by,
Yeah.
right? You can't do the
Until you
small
flipped it, I
print.
mean, I could read it right there, I still never realized there was something on the back, but
Details on back.
that's funny.
Yeah,
Now you have to stop and get out of your car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cause now I
so
can't pretend I didn't know.
if it's, let's say a site plan, we've had some site plans come before. So if it's adjacent, is required if it's adjacent to residential. So if it were a commercial site plan, then it would be noticed 500 feet. And then so this noticing is for the neighborhood meeting. So we would send let's say the developer who's developing a site, we would send him the mailing list of 500 within a radius of 500 feet. And that is determined by who gets that is determined by the county. We don't track ownership. City doesn't really care who owns what. We are more concerned with the land use. So the county is the one who collects the taxes. They want to know who the owners are. So we take that from the county website.
Our mailing also goes to the property itself. So if there's a tenant there, then they will get one delivered to them as well for the house. And it will also be sent to the owner if it's out of town, out of state, whatever. So 2 notices typically go to that one property owner if they're different. If they're the same, you typically hold out the ones that are the same and always sends it to the ones that are different. So our computer program actually eliminates those that are duplicates, or tries to at least.
Just a comment, worked with 3 other cities and none have sent to both. Orem's the only one I've worked with that has sent both the property owner and tenant, usually just the property owner.
So if you look at your list of labels that's included in the packet, you'll see like New Jersey or Texas or whatever. That's why, because the owner lives in Texas, but they're renting the property here. They own the property here. So then those would be the mailings, and then if it's bordered by residential or in C3 zone or in certain PD zones, then they would get this beautiful sign.
So just for clarification, that only goes on PDs and CD3, I'm sorry.
So if
I did the Republican convention on Saturday, and so I'm saying CD3.
If it's a site plan,
C3, okay.
yeah.
Or rezone, or those that require a public hearing typically will, not all of them, but rezones, things like that will be posted like that with the outside.
Yeah, so if you have a yes in this last column. you'll
Oh,
get
sign, okay.
The lovely sign.
Okay.
Okay, so, because we're required to do this by state law. However, we also notify now, recently within the last year, if a commercial property is doing a change, for like the Mr. Car Wash, it was, what was it, Chukarana or something?
Mhm.
And then moved to a car wash. So now if that happened again, we would notice all the properties around it, even though we're not required to. we would still do that just as a courtesy to the people who surround it, so they'll know what's going on in the lot next to it.
Cheryl, can we say no to something, even if it, I was paying attention to what's going on in Provo, and they're complaining that they have too many car washes, and it made me laugh, because we have so many. At some point, can we say, we just don't need any more?
We'd have to change the ordinance to limit them.
Did the vape shops and tattoo parlors.
So
And with
check cashing
check
and,
cashing.
we're working on an ordinance for a couple of those things.
Massage parlors.
Just right now, we can't, without changing the ordinance.
Okay,
They do have.
thank you.
But it was putting a moratorium, have that for like the C2 zone,
They got a
no,
huge limit.
storage,
Well, your grandfather did.
self-storage units. We have what, 3 or 4 right now, so at least 2 of those will have to go out of business before.
Just notice when they
Thank you.
pop up.
Any questions on that?
So with your postcards and stuff.
Oh, thank you.
I do have more questions, but
I do
continue.
actually have a presentation. I forgot about that, I was talking. So this is the same thing that you have in front of you. This is the ordinance itself regarding neighborhood meetings. They have to have certain language, they have to have that pursuant to Orem City Code, section 2214-20I. They have to have that in their notice. And it also tells you that they can't have it on a weeknight after 6 p.m. or on a Saturday after 9 a.m. It has to be, no, I'm sorry. It has to be on a weeknight after 6 and a Saturday before after 9. Does that, am I talking?
Yeah.
Okay,
And not on
You
city
can't have
council
it on-
meetings.
and you can't, and it
Doesn't
says
say
you can't have it on
that.
city council, you can't have it on holiday weekends.
So you, to clarify, you could, it's not advisable to have it on city council, but there's nothing prohibiting somebody from holding it on the same, doesn't make a lot of
Or
sense.
planning commission.
So we'll probably need to change that to.
The planning commission
specifically
is
state
over by.
that. So right now, holidays are prohibited in the day before and day after, you can't hold it on a holiday.
You have to
But
have it
anytime
within,
between Monday and Saturday, you can hold it.
give them a week's notice, you can't, give it to them the day before.
Has to be delivered by mail, so the delivery needs to be, so they have it in their mailbox.
Do we have a mandated window of when it has to be mailed out by?
Typically,
We
they,
generally,
go ahead.
I say we generally do it 2 weeks ahead, so for the next planning commission, we're already sending out notices.
I've not been getting a lot of them lately.
We
And
can,
I've gotten some that were late,
Sometimes they do get
a week late,
delivered late.
but the last batch I haven't got at all.
The fair just says,
and not
we've been
everyone,
on time, but maybe the mail service hasn't been.
we can't control the post office.
Well,
and they're-
I recognize the post office in Orem, especially since it all now goes to Salt Lake, it's really sucked.
And we don't notice everything,
Yeah,
not everything does have a notice.
well, I look at our packets and then, you can see the mailers in them, it's like,
Oh,
well, I didn't get that one. And I go down the mailing list to look for my name, I did that in today's one, so I didn't get either one of them.
That's interesting.
And yeah, my name's there, so
So you didn't get, just for clarification, you didn't get either one of these?
not yet.
So what did you do?
I won't say they ain't coming, but I
No,
didn't
but
get them.
I looked at the list too, because I was starting to go like, I feel like I've been getting them sporadically too, so.
Yeah, I used to get every one of them, but lately I don't get half of them.
Does your wife get the mail by chance?
Not usually, it's me or the kids, but.
Kids.
So we have a third party mail them, but there's a mailing service that we contract with, and they print them, and then they take them to the post office and stuff, but they typically are pretty on top of things with mailing. But I have, like we've sent out notices, just an example, we send out letters to all the business owners on an annual basis, reminding them that we have flood insurance available for those that want to have it. I've received back in the mail, undelivered mail 6 months later. It's just weird how some things, I didn't.
I get that water main insurance notice all the time from the city.
Yeah, so typically, the majority of them, I'm assuming I have my name on it just so I can make sure I get them and they get delivered, there's not some issue with it.
Yeah, I saw your name on it.
But it doesn't, I can't guarantee, obviously, it sounds like, but you all get them. We go through the right process, I hope, and for some reason they don't get delivered, but.
I brought this up last week, but on these neighborhood letters, could we not include a couple of sentences? And it's not you, I guess this is the developer. Could we not require them to give 2 sentences so that the person knows what the meeting is about? There's a dentist office coming into your neighborhood, because then a lot of these
No.
are quite innocuous, but every now and again, there's a biggie that people wanna know about. We could just give them a little burb, heads up, or nothing to worry about.
I mean, I was gonna say, just as we're on this topic, like, I mean, I keep them all until they come before us, cause I'm very like that. But like Apollo Burger totally went on
Yep,
and said, this is what we're gonna do, perfect. Like, if I was gonna say there was a perfect example, it would be that, hey, we're doing this, we love y'all, we wanna stay in business here.
Well,
And then,
I've talked with Jason about this because I think they do themselves a disservice. And they create frustration, because
Yeah.
people panic, but if you're like, oh, that's what it is, you know, you can save them some stress, so that's something we could modify with.
You could add a
the council, no council nights.
eliminate city council.
I feel like if they're not willing to tell me, they're hiding something, and then my suspicion radar goes up.
yeah. Like,
But when they're really honest like this, I mean, that's just nice.
And we send
It's
them
gonna
a
make the
mail
meeting so much better for you guys.
and fewer phone calls, but we would, what we've started when we send out the mailers, because we're the ones who tell them what the list is. We've asked them to let us see it before
those
they
are sent out by.
send it out, and today I got one back. They had the wrong zone, they didn't know what zone it, they knew what they were zoning it to, but they didn't know what it currently was, and they didn't know how many people they were sending it to. So we made 2 corrections, they sent it back to me and said, here's the corrected one, thanks for your input, and then we're good to go, but they were pretty detailed about what they're doing, so we're trying to catch those.
So we could do an amendment to that, have them.
It would be helpful for everybody if it was just clear, what are you intending to do?
Yeah. And it makes it easier for us too, because then we get a phone call, they have a neighborhood meeting first, so the
Yes.
neighbors know before we do. So we can't tell them what's going on, because we don't
Exactly.
know. Yeah.
I have a question. I went to the neighborhood meeting at Apollo Burger. And he said he asked if the city had a place he could hold the meeting. And he was told no.
No, he was probably told he could have it at the rec center or the senior center, or at his own property, but we don't provide that. We try to separate, or try to be separate, so that the neighbors and the developer can,
What do they have to do to use the
the rec center?
rec center or the council
Yes,
chamber?
no, they can't use the council, they used to be able to use the council chambers, but I don't know why the city manager's office hasn't let them do that for a while now. It was back when Christie was still here, which was 2 or 3
We
years.
typically don't allow uses in this building, we do allow in the rec center and the senior friendship center.
They just need to call and make a reservation.
There'd be a rental fee of, I don't know how
He
much.
said he called the city and asked where he could hold it, and that they didn't have any place.
We usually tell them the
So
rec
he
center.
had it in the restaurant. I was the first one there, and nobody in the restaurant knew anything about it. I was the only one that showed up until about the end of the meeting. And the only other one that showed up was the business next door.
Did you get some fries at least?
But I don't know how many might have showed up.
Deep fried
But
Yeah,
the employees had no clue. And the architect wasn't there when I left.
yeah, so like I said, we generally tell them they can call the rec center, they have multi-purpose rooms that they can rent, and also the senior center, the friendship, is it senior friendship center, they have these also. That's the general answer that we have for them.
Do you have something written out that you give to individuals when they come in and say, hey, we wanna make this application, other than the application itself, is there any form of, you know, one sheet of information of how to, where, hey, if you need a meeting,
So
you can do this?
The checklist, which is about a 7-page thing, is part of the application. So all the different things, including this, are all in that
It's a
application,
package.
in the packet. Of course, we call the application, but it's all the different things, so they get that when they.
But is that information included in that? So like, that they can use the rec center or they can use the,
Not that, no.
We need
Because-
to,
I think that needs to be in there.
You can,
Because I think that those are the kind of things, I think sometimes when we get feedback and when we hear things from people, it's clearly y'all have this information and clearly y'all know this stuff, but I feel like there's a lot of miscommunication that happens between y'all and the public, and I think some of those things, if they were written or if they were clearly on the website in a place that people could go to and see and find, you know. I think it would help with some of this miscommunication and misunderstanding.
I agree, when that gas station on 2000, all of that came, people were complaining that they had a neighborhood meeting outside in January, and they didn't wanna go. I don't know if that's true, you know, but that's what the neighborhood said. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea to tell them.
The
where
one they held by me, they held out in the middle of the parking lot in the rain. So
Okay, so it is happening.
it's not conducive to getting people to show up, even though over 120 people showed up, so.
That's something we can add to our
So we can add.
email.
Yeah, I think anything that, you know, if you're gonna hold a meeting, it has to be, there's reasonable expectations that the weather and the space is going to be
Sufficient.
viable to go out, yeah, I mean.
Yeah,
There's some that hold them in hotel conference rooms, there's, you know, if you have a space on site, a building, you can, I mean, applicants would do that as well.
Yeah,
In a case where you don't have that event, you know, that really is up to them, that we can provide, or you could do it in the city buildings.
right.
yeah.
It seemed to me that if I'm having a neighborhood meeting, and I'm in charge of the meeting, that I would be asking some questions about where could this be held? I mean, I'd say a lot of the onus is on them, but it doesn't seem to be working perhaps as well as it could and should.
Yeah, we
But,
could be a little more forthcoming with.
I mean, if
We
someone's,
can in the city, if you choose to hold it here, here's the costs. We can do that.
And on the neighborhood meetings, I mean, what is the purpose, other than it's a statutory, you have to go through this process? What are we really trying to get out? Cause I mean, some people have attended them. We've seen the notes, the minutes from some of them, and it can vary widely, and obviously that will with different projects and different levels of sophistication. I mean, you're gonna have something different with the developer who does it all the time, and an average citizen who this is their first time and they just wanna build onto their lot, right? So, I mean, other than all this long legal code, is there a clear explanation of what needs to be accomplished in the meeting included within that packet?
I believe it is, we'll have to double check that, but the intent is just to let the neighbors know what's proposed. In certain cases, we try to discourage them from coming with a final plan unless it's a site plan like the hamburger shop up here, which is really, there's not a lot of negotiation. Here's where it is, here's where we put it. Like a high density or a multifamily development, that's when you want to come in with not really having a set plan, which we talked to several about. Typically what it is just inform the neighbors and allow them to give their input. It's not really get their vote. It's not really to, you know, that kind of thing. It's really more of an informal thing. So the neighbors have the ability to know who the architect or who the contractor or who the owner is. They can address any questions that they have, any worries or things like that. And then they can at least be aware of it. Have it in minutes, we can have it documented. We do require them to give us that. So it could vary, like you're saying, depending on how they take their minutes or how they interpret the comments. But typically, it's more of just an informative information meeting that we invite the council, we invite the planning commission and all the neighbors within that distance to attend.
That's interesting, Jason, because the meeting last Tuesday, the neighbors were saying that they were taking minutes, but they were only writing down the comments they wanted to write down. So they were being very selective with the minutes, and they were complaining about that. But it doesn't sound like they're required to take all minutes, just some.
Well, and I think with, you know, and some are gonna get caught, right? Because you have planning commissioners that go, you have city council members that go, and so when they come with minutes that don't make a lot of sense, then obviously they're gonna say, well, that wasn't what was represented when I was at the meeting. We don't go with staff. I've just been an advocate not to go because we get caught in other issues other than this project. They're gonna talk about something else and it
Right.
just hasn't worked out over the years, and luckily Ryan doesn't make me go. But that's the reason we don't go, is just because we get on into different issues and we could derail a neighborhood meeting, which the intent was to talk about that project and not the sewer project or something else that's bothering the neighbors that are at the time. So we don't go to verify that, but we do invite, like I say, city council, planning commissions, and we do have several that go on a regular basis. I know Mike goes a lot, so, and a lot of city council members, David knows to a lot of them, so that's where we're gonna, I think, catch, if somebody says, well, yeah, everybody was in favor, and half the people were not, then that's, but they do run the risk of not telling the whole truth.
Yeah, I just told them that they needed to send an email to the city council. didn't know what else to do.
I think that's the best approach. In the code, it only says the applicant shall keep detailed minutes of the content of the neighborhood meeting. So we kind of have to rely on them.
Yeah, okay.
But I like that approach.
Well, I mean, then it's on the citizen too, to communicate with the city council
Well, and they have to come to the planning commission and speak.
and speak, yeah.
Most of
You could add a proviso saying if your minutes found to be fraudulent, we'll reject your application immediately.
Then they both have to go to planning commission and city council, right? So
Yeah.
there's going to
Well, it
be
depends on
a
what it is.
hearing. And those citizens hopefully will come to those meetings and say, that's not what I said.
Wait.
Yeah.
You didn't write down this, what I said.
To Jason's point as well, the reason staff doesn't attend these is because we're not advocates for the project.
No,
They wanna sell the
absolutely,
project,
yeah.
they
I
have to
understand.
sell it, right? We're here to
Yep.
take them through the process and they get to make their cases. So we don't want to be viewed as supporting their project or not supporting it or no.
Yep.
So that's been our practice is to just stay.
Ryan, that'd be fair to say that's why we don't also let them have meetings on in the city.
I honestly don't know why we don't let them use the council chambers. It might possibly be that we just don't have staff in the building at night in this building, but we do it at the center. And we have the capability of the senior center. And that might be why we have fee schedules set up for those two facilities.
You don't want to be pulled into it either. You can.
True, if we're here having to open it up for them and stuff.
Okay. Any other neighborhood meeting questions?
I like the
Lots of
idea
good
of
comments.
lining up the dates, I just, making sure we mail it out in enough time that there's plenty of time to plan to go. Not, oh, that's in 2 days. Because it's, if I was a mom with 5 kids, that's kind of hard to plan, somebody's gotta watch the kids in 2 days, so.
In a perfect mail world, it gets there within, we mail it one day, it'll get there within 2 to 3 days. So it's typically a 3-day window that we assume it remains, some don't, but typically when we mail them out one day, I'll get it in my mailbox 3 days later. That's the typical. Now, of course, there's gonna be some exceptions to that.
Would you say in general that this system works well? Are there a lot of complaints, people saying that
We get both sides. We get some, say, why am I keep getting this, I want this notice, stop taking me off your list. I mean, we have that extreme. We have some that don't get them. And we just, generally, but for the most part, generally, I think it's going well. There are extremes on both sides. They don't want the notice and I didn't get the notice type of thing. So we're doing our best to make sure that it is, but there are some circumstances that are out of our control, but I think for the most part, I think it works. Now, we could, emphasize in the ordinance maybe a little bit more on what the subject is going to be about, so people, and really it's in their best interest to say, this is what we're doing. We're not doing anything different. We're just putting a new building in, the same business is gonna go there, which would quell some of their concerns. So I think to Ryan's point, it does them a disservice when they are a little more sneaky. Well, I shouldn't say sneaky, they just maybe don't know that they should include all that stuff. So we can make it codified and in the checklist to make sure that they know that.
So I do think, I don't say you necessarily, but the city, but as that side, there is an onus on your side to make sure that people come in and understand. Because I think that there are a lot of miscommunications that happen between.
Yep.
That.
True, very true.
So in some cases, people didn't know they got noticed. So we have these older postcards, this is 2018. So we've gone from this where there's 4 on a sheet to the bigger yellow. So hopefully they at least look at it to see what it is, and then they will know that they were noticed.
So we have the QR code as well, which takes you to that link. So if you're, savvy, you can do the QR code. If you don't, you can do the link as well. We've got the phone number, we got email. So there's a lot more ability for someone who's interested, that really doesn't understand it, to call us and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Or they can go to the QR code, which gives them the site plan, which gives them the elevations, helps them there as well.
It does, but I've done it. My one thing is it drops you into a Dropbox basically, and you have to know what the name of the project is. And on most of these, like, it isn't clear. Like, that one's the Hoyle office building, but maybe it needs to be bolded so that if somebody's looking up, that they know that they go to planning and then they need to look for
That's good.
that term, because you could get in there and if, like this week, there's 2 things, so you could probably figure it out, but some weeks we have 6 things. And that can be a little bit difficult to navigate.
We could try to match what's on the card versus what the time is in the Dropbox. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I think that would be
Makes
an
sense.
easy And like I said, like bolding it or something so people know that that's the title of this product.
I think that's a good idea.
We'll do that, we'll change that.
Cause we live in a world where people have like, we only have a short bit of time to get information across.
We can't get blinking LEDs on the cars, so.
And that card change is definitely a great move.
At least it's down a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's perfect. I wouldn't have known about my commercial zone property change. And because it was stuffed in a magazine somehow and it fell off it when I was throwing it in the garbage.
I've had that happen.
When it was a small one, but that big
Yeah.
one is beautiful, it's perfect.
We're not
Dave
getting
was proud of that.
parachutes from
He
the
approved
cars.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dave.
Dave.
We also moved it from 300 feet to 500 to 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
People are getting noticed.
Nice.
We've talked about that a lot in here too, that we're like, okay, how far did it go? Cause sometimes it is like the next nearest neighbor is farther than,
But we have on occasion gone bigger, like I said, the University
Yeah.
Place, some other controversial rezones we have gotten a little wider, just.
I think the road structure plays a big part
Mhm.
in who you should notify. That's not possible. We've got to stick to the footage, but
But like C2s and C3s having a wider reach behind. Because a lot of people will use their roads now to get to some of that stuff a
Exactly.
lot of the
Yeah.
times. So they may be a little out of reach, but they are gonna be in there.
they're gonna be impacted.
So we charge the developer.
Oh, we just, you charge the road.
Now, on occasion, if we have to renotice for some reason, one of us, we have to continue to the planning commission or city council, we have to renotice it, the city will pay for that. But typically, these fees are all, when they make application, they'll calculate these fees using this form, and that's part of their fee is that mailing cost.
And that's per planning commission, and then you have to do it again for city council. So it'd be, if you did 500 feet notice at this particular address, it'd be 125.46 twice, one for planning, one for city council. And if you did 1,000 feet, it'd be 225.36 twice. So it does cost.
It's not bad.
Oh, 7
That's
cents
what postage
printing
is.
costs? That's very fair.
I have no idea.
74
74 cents.
Especially for the postcard.
Well, I wasn't including the shipping. I mean, for the city, we're getting 7 cents per postcard.
So that's the printing cost, yeah.
Yeah.
So city carries that cost?
No.
No,
They
it's
pay the fee.
The person, okay.
Yeah.
So the contractors we
16
use the
cents.
mailing
Yeah,
service,
if you include
basically,
the
those are those fees, their fees, we've added.
You don't-
It's part of their application fees. Yeah,
Part of the application, okay.
Yeah,
yeah, they pay it upfront.
someday we'll print on there.
There you go.
And that's, any other questions on noticing?
Thanks, Cheryl.
guys got anything
Thank
else?
you. I can talk.
So Ed Murray's not here, cause he's the one who usually has all the noticing, how are the neighbors noticed and
He's in Ireland, so I don't.
I don't know, maybe I don't feel so bad. So,
Okay.
yeah, before we get to Matt, we have questions, and not a question for me.
Right, sure, fire away. Yes, you ready? I'm ready, alright, so.
Yeah, I know.
Like this one.
Yes. Before things
Is
get
it this one?
overturned, yes, that's normally never in anybody's business. It never happens, ever.
Wants to hear from it.
When leave it in a good healthy container, okay? Of getting the data, the emails we're receiving, which I know we shouldn't be receiving. I get it, that's why, because we shouldn't, it means we should not be doing.
Yeah, I can give you an update on where we're at.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Not gonna be there, but.
Wilkerson Farm is coming through for a site plan approval. What happened is one of our building inspectors was driving by and they had a barn building, 2-story building under construction without a building permit. So he red tagged it, of course. Upon further review, they had carnival rides on site that had not been inspected by the state of Utah. They had site lighting that was direct buried without it being a conduit as per commercial code. So our building department started working with them at the urging of the mayor in a very nice manner and not in an authoritative, we're gonna shut you down manner. And we were working towards getting them open last year. And we got them open last year, although they haven't addressed all of the concerns we were working with them to that point. And continue to work with them. So where we're at right now is they've applied for site plan approval, and that will be an administrative approval, so you guys won't even see it. it will be approved by me, and right now they're addressing, I think they have one red line to address, which has to do with drainage and how it ties into paved crossing next door. To make sure there's not water topping off the property into backyards.
That was a big issue when we were dealing with paint issue.
Yeah,
There's
and
stuff
it-
last year
And I think there's a big challenge down there just with groundwater in general that is kind of possibly not a direct cause of anything other than the soil conditions down there in the high water table. So where we're at right now is we kind of have a disagreement between our legal team's interpretation of state code and what Wilkerson's interpretation of state code is. Wilkerson worked with, I think Margaret Dayton back in the day to come grandfathered in that they can do certain things with a farm building under a certain size without it meeting building code. And the state approved that as part of legislation. The way they're operating right now, our attorneys feel is not within the state code, and so they do fall under the building code. So where we're at right now is they have the big building in the front where they have the overhangs with all the produce. They've got some broken structural footings that the posts sit on that don't really meet code, but we're allowing them to replace those. Cause that building was already there when they got annexed into Orem. And they've done some modifications to it, but right now we're allowing that building to operate. Two-story building under construction, we're not allowing them to use it at all. And then they have a smaller building that's an entrance building that needs to be brought up to code, but we're allowing them to use it just because it's, I think, one employee in there issuing tickets. They're also currently burying all the underground electrical properly and conduit, and our inspectors have been inspecting that, and they're almost done with that. So we're getting close to getting the site plan approved and the conduit approved for the electrical. They have come into compliance with the state of Utah with the carnival rides. UDOT has to come out and inspect them, and that was done last year. So that's a good step. Where we're at right now is they can't use that two-story building. It doesn't meet building code, and the small building doesn't meet building code, but we're letting them use it for right now so they can be open in June. If they want to use those two buildings though in perpetuity, they've got to bring them up to code, or they need to go back to the legislature and change the state law. And I think that's the approach they're going to go with. And so we're working with them so that they can be open in June and continue to operate. But there's a life safety issue with those buildings. If one of them happened to fail with people in it, they would be liable as well as, I don't know who else would be liable, but possibly, I'm not gonna say it on the record.
Yeah. I mean, if you let them use it, you let them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a pretty fine line, and we want the farm to be successful and open and operate and make money so they can continue to be there, but in the same breath, it's when you have general public come under, there's some new requirements. So that's kind of where we're at. I've been in communication with her this week, and I think we're still headed down that path in a forward manner, so.
Couple of questions, does that answer some?
Just a question, so we were talking to Gary about it 2
Yeah.
weeks ago, and they had asked if Gary could, if we, the city of Orem, could change Orem ordinance, or if it had to go to the state code. And Gary said he didn't know, he said he was gonna go and look, and he's not here this week, so I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, Gary's been working with me on this, and Gary and Jake Summers has also done a bunch of research. He actually went back and listened to the legislative hearings when the code was created to find out what the real intent was. And of their opinion, we cannot pass legislation in Orem that circumvents the state code when it comes to buildings. So
So they have to go to the legislature.
that we can't do that at the local level, have to go to the legislature.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I let her know that into last week, and we communicated this week as well. So that's where we're at.
So what are the issues with the two-story building? What?
No permit, there was no permit.
No permit, so the plans were never reviewed, it's built on a slab instead of a foundation. And then the construction manner is not what an architect would design or a structural engineer. And so they have an architect and structural engineer they've hired to try to figure out a way to make it meet code, and we're kind of waiting to hear if they come back.
Why did they do it without a permit?
Unfortunately, it happens a lot. In another development down in the industrial area, our team caught a big shop going in without a permit. It was built in the setback even. And they're probably, I don't know where we're at with that, are they gonna have to demolish it?
They haven't come back.
Okay,
Really, they have no choice.
it happens, and it's not fun when it happens. But, I mean, most business people or business owners that have done this a lot realize it's best to get the permit up front. I mean, I know in your line of work, you
It's
deal with
beyond
on
me, the only
everything.
things in that permit, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
They deserve what's coming, I'm sorry, but
it's hard, and I understand
they
they're.
do, they deserve what's coming, you don't get a permit, you. If it were me, I would have them demolished. They don't understand the risk.
They may have to, but right now they have to, basically rope it off and it can't
Yeah,
be used
which
for
is-
own operations.
So good of the city. Now, the other question I have, you talking about the attorneys feel. Attorneys normally don't feel, either no.
Sorry, that's their interpretation of the code. Maybe I'm using the word
They're
feel,
just trying to make you
but
think.
that is their professional opinion.
So that's the professional interpretation of
Yes,
the law,
interpretation of the law.
but then we have to put it against the state
Yeah.
to see which one prevails. What's the process for the city to do that?
Their process is, so let's just talk what normally happens in the world. This is not Wilkerson we're talking about, but when this happens on any other property, our prosecutors usually prosecute them. Goes to the ALJ, the administrative law judge, and he makes a ruling.
Yeah.
So in this case, we've been asked by the mayor not to prosecute or anything, but to work with them
Okay, which is,
and
Could be
find a
good.
path forward.
And in their defense, I don't think they ever saw it as a building. I mean, it doesn't have a roof. They just wanted a structure just to store their vegetables. So I don't think they saw it as a building. I'm not making excuses for them.
No, I
But I don't
understand.
think they were being sneaky. I think they thought, it doesn't have a roof. We're not, it's not gonna inhabit anybody. And so I think it was ignorance.
And it could be, they farm, right?
They're
not-
farmers.
They don't build buildings.
They care about protecting the vegetables. They're not thinking about humans.
And in a normal farm, they do have flexibility to build farm structures without building inspections.
well, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a hay loft or a certain, if it's under a certain square footage.
Oh.
They can,
Yeah, under
Occupancy is where it
1,500.
falls into
Yeah.
different requirements, right?
Yeah.
Because they're having people actually go into the building, that's where our building
Right.
safety division is saying, well, they need to meet certain standards.
Okay, but obviously there was some leniency that's been exercised by the direction of certain people to allow both operation while maintaining safety.
that's what our goal is. We're trying to find a win-win.
Okay.
Because we don't want them to fail. We
Right.
understand that their fall harvest or this year they're doing a summer one for the first time, that's their moneymaker.
Yeah.
And as a farmer, to just grow produce and sell it, you're not gonna survive and keep a farm open. And we want farms to stick around. We don't need them to be.
And what
run
I
out of
want you
town.
guys all to know is a lot of their land, they actually grow and donate to charity. This is how I know them. I go and pick for them every fall.
Yeah,
Potatoes and onions, and all of it goes to charity. That's quite a bit of land that they're just growing on. And I think they're a really good family.
no, they're great people. It's just one of those tough
Yeah.
things where wish we didn't have to get to this point, but we have.
Right.
And if they had got a permit to begin with, we wouldn't be here. Because it would have been designed to current code and it would have been built that way. So
Thank you.
we try to work with them and not always be the hammer.
I don't know, I know, you guys always support some
Sometimes, sometimes we have to be the
Unless-
hammer, but.
unless if they have a big shop on the setback. I'll work on those people.
Could be interesting.
Yeah,
I love how political you guys are. It'd be interesting. No, it's not interesting. It's not code. Take it off.
everything we do is political. So.
I'm sitting right next to a council. Gotta be. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And we can go like, I think the city's doing.
No, I still think there's ways around it, if they're shielding their vegetables, maybe they could do it to where the people don't go in there. I don't know.
You have to have somebody put the vegetables in.
Yeah, there has to be a way around it, They'll figure it out between everybody.
They'll figure it out. Thank you.
We'll get there, one way or another.
Yeah.
We always do. There's gnashing of teeth and things of that nature, but we get there.
Excellent. Okay, lighting.
All right,
Thank you.
Last time we talked, I passed out a hypothetical ordinance. It seemed a little overwhelming, especially because I started out with the draft ordinance had about 20 different definitions around lighting. Lighting can get pretty technical, as you've seen through our presentations for the last few months. And that's why those definitions existed. So if there was a misunderstanding about what something meant, definitions was clarify what that technically means. Try and help discussion move forward. I've really pared down that sort of hypothetical orders, just sort of a key couple points, not comprehensive. There's things that I think we'll still talk about beyond this, but just to help the discussion be more focused and managed. And I did pare down some language just to sort of non-residential zone standards around types of light fixtures, the type of illumination for the site. Now, the other sheet I passed out is a summary of our general lighting standards. There are some exceptions of PD zones, but and I did include the one about site plans that was pointed out to me. We do require a site plan showing its location and type of exterior lighting. So for today's discussion, we don't have too much time, but you know, there's a couple questions I think would help advance this. Questions that the planning commission could answer those would help advance this to the next step. Does the planning commission support explicit regulations that reduce glare, light traffic, trespass, and over illumination? So there's three main topics. I think as this evolves and develops, we can capture some of the other subtopics that we've discussed, but these are the three main things. So just as a reminder, light trespass is light where you do not want it, particularly on your property coming from some other source. Glare is either intense blinding light. That doesn't have to be on your property. It could be in the right of way. You could be on a parking lot. You could, yeah. And what are the detriments to that? You know, it makes it actually difficult to see. It creates hot spots and dark spots, and that's also a safety issue from a crime perspective. There's two types of glare: discomfort and disability. Disability is where discomfort is you just don't like it; it's uncomfortable, affects you. But disability actually creates less safe or less ability to see in certain locations. And of course, over illumination, are we just really pumping out more light that's actually needed? What are the pros and cons of doing that? And one of the ways to address this is just this basic first line of code, really, that I'm putting out here. Right now, our ordinance just basically says, hey, make sure the light doesn't shine on other property. And what this line that reads is that let's get a little more explicit about that, just to help, one, settle debates. When a person comes and says, well, I want this type of lighting. Well, we think that lighting's not gonna accomplish the goals of the ordinance. Now prove it. Now, generally cutoff is the new standard. Cutoff or full cutoff lighting is the standard to prevent lighting from spilling over into other people's properties and creating glare conditions. So this language attempts to just sort of solve that debate by saying all outdoor light fixtures in commercial areas that house lamps rated more than 500 lumens, that's equivalent to a 45-watt bulb, shall be full cutoff and oriented as intended per manufacturing instructions. So if we have a debate, we can go back to the instructions with the manufacturer, settle the debate. We keep it's still pretty broad in that there's a lot of different types of full cutoff fixture types on the market. So I don't personally think that this is really limiting anybody. Can they utilize every fixture type at Home Depot? No, they couldn't. Can they find an equivalent in the store or online? They will absolutely be able to find a full cutoff fixture that meets their needs, especially for a larger developments, probably working with a lighting engineer at that point. They'll definitely have the resources to find whatever they need. But yeah, I even think the general small business owner would be able to read this regulation, understand it, and with a little online searching, fill their needs. Any thoughts about that type of language being put in the code and moving forward? Requiring full cutoff.
Are you
for commercial fire.
grandfathering people that have?
Yeah, so that's one of the
If I have a
sections
building
I've taken
and I
and
don't
put
have the right
aside.
lights, and you're gonna tell me I gotta, you change this and you're gonna make me change all my lights, I don't. So we gotta be
So
careful.
one of this was about 3 pages before, took most of that and just set it aside for discussion purposes. One of the sections that had in it was basically grandfathering language, saying we're not gonna come in retro at.
So this is new build or new construction?
Yeah, so that, there's an enabling applicability clause that would be put into their,
Probably say any new site plan
yeah,
after.
any new site plan or any remodel over a certain level of square feet or something, some type of threshold. You now need to come into compliance. But we would not suggest trying to be retroactive on this, in general.
Is there a possibility for incentives? You wanna go retroactive?
I don't know what that looks like, what are you thinking?
You can give them the salaries you make being on a flooding station.
I'll double it.
I mean, there could
Nice.
be. Incentives as far as like providing fixtures,
Financial, like some sort of compensation,
Yeah.
credit.
and that'd be a council
Our city doesn't
discussion
have a lot
if it
of credit
was.
programs anyway.
If it was a high priority for the council to fund and budget a swap out program or
Maybe
some
there's
other
some
type of
grants or
incentive
something on
program,
the
that,
state or federal level, we can look at it.
yeah, but that's not something that we'd be
Definitely
putting forward
agree.
in this ordinance.
Did we ever, is our city light bonds paid off already?
I don't know if it's 100% paid off.
It's close, but the fees are gonna.
Like our neighborhood, I think is the last one dropping off.
Yeah,
You're talking.
well, that's great, cause our neighborhood, so I have a complaint. The city light is right straight from my window.
Yes,
I
I've
cover-
been bringing this
And
up.
what
I've-
I cover on my eye to sleep.
Yes,
shut
we
down
had
everything.
5 blackout curtains
Like
to,
literally.
Yeah, we just got, cause I've got Provo light shining in
So
my
let's,
window.
let's retroactive this on the city limit.
yes,
I had some neighbors who painted the backside of the line.
We have shields that can be installed
I'll pay for it.
if you just send me an address.
I'll send you.
They do okay, but it's still,
Right.
No, better than it is right now.
it needs to make sure it goes straight down instead of,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like,
But it's
that
still-
last one, the full cutoff,
but the sheet, it's still, the light still goes through, so you still, I don't know.
It really
It's
should
better than
just
it is.
point down
It should just
on the
point-
sidewalk and out. the
Or you
road.
could have a dimmer.
One of them's back to cover.
we're electricians now.
I'm working on a good dimmer, because they go, hey, we got dimmers. They put them like,
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
no, I bring this one up every time we bring this up, don't I,
But
Jason?
I think a full cutoff going forward is,
I think,
it's a good idea.
I think it's fair, if it's fair, which your grandfather, I think you're good.
I think our city lights are the second cutoff. I mean, they are cut off, so they don't have.
Jason, I spent a lot of time staring at.
We need full cutoff.
And
It
if there is like
glows
a
through the
really,
It does.
It literally
Yes.
glows through the top. You can tell it's a little bit capped off, but it glows. Slightly less.
Just a little bit.
Awesome,
So-
thank you.
alright, so we'll move, hey, we got through section 1.
Yeah,
So we'll move some language forward for that, we'll review it internally to make sure we're comfortable with this exact language. And then, of course, it'll be open for public review and discussion as the regular manner. The second regulation on here is also about glare and light trespass. There is a tendency, I don't have a
yeah, I have a question about that.
height. There's a tendency sometimes for a developer to install a handful of really tall lights with extra illumination to cover more area. It's less expensive. However, no matter how well a fixture is fully cut off, at a certain point, it still
Above everybody else, so there's.
has a
the canopy,
range,
it's not-
right? Still has a range of going outward. And so there is a lot of industry standards now are suggesting there should be a certain limitation in parking lots or other outdoor limits for even a full cutoff fixture. Now, what that ultimately does though is require, say you're trying to get away with, not get away, you're trying to just install 4 poles, now maybe you need to do 8. Okay, to have the same type of coverage and the type of illumination that's appropriate for the site.
So with height, are we talking the height of the pole? Are we talking about the height of the pole from the base, whatever the concrete on the bottom is? Are we talking about where the light actually hits?
So this just reads light fixtures shall not exceed 18 feet in height and shall not exceed 12 feet in activity area. So 18 feet, we'd register that probably from grade if we need to be a little more explicit in the language about that.
I would suggest that.
To the top of the pole, that's what we,
Yeah.
our standard is typically to the top,
Top of the
whether it's a
pole.
house or whatever, the top of the pole, finished grade.
Just might be clearer, because that can be interpreted a lot, because you can have 18-foot pole and then you can have it pretty arched down and it's really at 16 feet, so. There's a lot of interpretation, like, oh, can I do a 20-foot pole and then have it sag a couple feet? I mean, there's a lot.
You heard about the giant flagpole, right? With like a 50 or 100-foot pole up, and they says you can't go that high, so they just built a mound.
And we can use the terminology like natural grade or finished grade, not
Artificial.
not
We do have some
artificial.
of those rules now, but it's for
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah, sure.
I just think it might clarify that.
So some other cities just went shorter than 18 feet back on the East Coast. Or especially commercial. But some of them, like in car lots, if you can actually see from Salt Lake, there's a dealership, the Nissan dealership in Draper. All the lights are not even 8 feet tall, they're directly on the cars, so there's no light around. You can see the cars really well, side security, but right above that, nothing.
Is it $10?
Yes, $10 Nissan. Yeah, good memory.
I think everybody should do what University Mall used to do, those giant flying saucers on top of the poles.
So that's,
Yeah, we actually.
So we're about 1 minute, I'll wrap it up for today's discussion.
thank you.
I'll just give you food for thought for next time, okay? And we'll just blow through these slides as that food for thought. The next sort of decision point I think that would be helpful to Planning Commission to move forward on is regulations around, oh, this is not the right one, sorry. Where did it go? Just find it there. Well,
I'd like to see something about,
oh, here it is.
frequency, so
That's short. See which one, yeah, it's the first one.
Yeah,
So
and
they did a mix.
we do have a section in here on that,
Yeah.
but if we could save that before we're getting through some of these core issues first.
I like that.
Attack that, but it's avoiding over illumination, so even if you have your cutoff light fixtures, they're at the right height. If you put, a 20,000 lumen bulb in there, you're still gonna have spillage and effects and glare issues. And so that's what this next section is about. I'm not gonna read through it, but just here's a few graphics. Thinking about how, again, are you creating an even spread of lighting through your parking or outdoor areas versus concentrating that lighting?
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we gotta adjourn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Call our planning commission meeting to order at 4:32 on May 1st, 2024. We will begin with an invocation by Helen.
Dear kind and gracious Father in heaven, how grateful we are to be gathered here, to be able to serve our city. Father, we pray that we will be granted the gift of wisdom and discernment and that we can make the right decisions for both our city and for our residents. And Father, we love thee and we're so very grateful for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. Okay, we will begin with item 3.1, preliminary plat, approving the preliminary plat of Pace Academy located generally at 625 South State Street in the C2 zone.
All right, so this shows the location of the Pace Academy, and it is in the C2 zone next to the Sarah Park, which is in the public facilities zone. What they want to do is remove the current drive access and move it around the corner into the access that goes into the park, Sierra Park's parking lot. So they will take out, this is a demolition plan showing taking out the existing access. And then this is where the new access will be, coming off that road that goes into the parking lot for the park. The reason they want to do this is because it is dangerous. I'll show you the street view. You can see how close it is to that exit from the park, and it's become a danger problem, safety problem. So by closing this access and moving it down, it will be safer. So they will take this access, they will put in sidewalk, curb gutter, and landscaping. So here's the landscape plan showing where that will be, where the existing access is. And did you have any questions for me?
I do, but it's more of an understanding question because
Okay.
they're making changes to the frontage along State Street. And when we changed from the State Street master plan and reverted back, there was specific things about setbacks and moving the sidewalk away from the edge. And I get this is a smaller project. I get they're just trying to fill in. Totally needs to happen. I'm just trying to understand at what point does it kick over that they need to re-landscape to be in compliance with what the rules are in the State Street master plan, not the State Street master plan, the current rules along State Street for the C3 zone.
So generally, if they're changing more than 15% of their
15%?
building.
Okay.
However, this is requested by the city. So, because we want it to be safer.
Okay.
They did not request this.
Question I have is that, and would you show the photograph again?
Uh-huh.
So the people that park in the area of the academy, the access off State Street is quite easily accessible. So how will that affect the in and out of getting into that parking area? Do you understand what I'm asking?
They will still be able to get in and out. They'll just have to turn into, well, I guess this might show it, they'll have to turn into this access for the park. They'll go down and make a left turn into their Pace Academy. So the access will be off of this road that's painted red.
Yeah, but it's quite some distance down where they turn, it appears, turn left to go into that. Not as though that's a problem, but.
Well,
I don't think it's,
yeah.
If I can address it, it makes it a safer, not only a throat to come out and access in, but it also gives them the ability to go in and access that without really, hitting your brakes. If you've ever been up to the Macy's and somebody decides to get a drink and hits the brakes really fast, this is kind of the same situation we have here. So if they're able to decel into either going to the Sarah Pool or going to the park or going to this business, it allows them a little longer to get in and make that park. So I mean, is it a little bit more? Yeah, it's only like 50 yards maybe. So it's not really out of their way, in our opinion anyway.
Yep.
And she's changed the slide so I can see it clearly. The entrance is directly across from Sarah Pool.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Steph? Is the applicant, oh, sorry.
You don't
Good.
see any perceived issues with the Sarah traffic at all or the park?
We don't believe so, no. Now, if it's, closing time at 6 and they all come out together, there might be, but it just depends. I'm sure the park kind of cycles throughout the day depending on who's going, who's coming, swim lessons, things like that. And I'm not sure the operation of this business, but I think they're intermittent enough that I don't think it's going to be a traffic jam.
I just worry that, losing the access because the state's not going to give it back to you.
Right.
if you close it off and this becomes a big mess.
Yeah, this is, that throat is owned by Orem City, so that's kind of the things that we're working with the owners at is because we really want this access instead of the one on State Street. So we understand that we're now sharing that road and have an agreement between the Orem City and the developer that, to use that road as the
So
access.
as I understand it, this is the city's idea that this be done.
I don't know who started the idea. It might have been the applicant, but we definitely support the idea of moving that off State Street just because of the safety issue.
So the applicant's in favor of it then, it sounds
Yes.
like. Okay.
And they're here, I believe, can address that.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward? Okay. Yeah, you can sit there.
Yeah, I've been in that building running a business, owner operated for, I think that location just over 10 years. I've witnessed, yeah, it's an English school for international students. I've witnessed some very sketchy left-hand turns. A lot of times there's a parking easement with Sierra Pool, a cross easement that a lot of participants of Sierra events park in my parking lot during the events. We have that cross easement already. And what happens is people get bottlenecked in there and then they have to make this very dangerous left-hand turn to even get into the Sierra Park extra parking. So a lot of Sierra Park people first try my parking lot because it's a little bit closer to the event. And then they find that there's no parking stalls. It turns into a big circus as people are 5-point turning to get back out. And then it's a massive bottleneck trying to turn left onto State Street only to turn left again. And I've seen some very close calls in my 10 years of being there. So I brought this up to change the entry because I just kind of don't want any blood on my hands. And I feel like eventually it's going to happen, is that somebody's going to get T-boned going through there. So.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much. Okay. This is administrative and we are the final approving authority on this. Are we ready to move to motion? Someone like to make a motion? Should be more specific.
I'll make a motion that the planning commission approve their preliminary plat of Pace Academy located generally at 625 South State Street in the C2 zone.
I'll second.
Okay, Jim moved that we approved and Helena second the preliminary plat for Pace Academy. We ready to vote? Okay.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, the preliminary plat is approved. We will move on to item 3.2, preliminary plat vacating lot 4 of the Sydney Cove Plat A and approving Sydney Cove Plat B located generally at 454 East, 1600 South in the R6.5 zone.
All right, so this shows you the location, and this is in the R65 zone. It also is next to the PD 38, as well as a lot of C2, not too far away. This is the site plan or the boundary survey showing the two lots in question here. So this, I'll just make it a little bit bigger. So what they're calling lot 4 used to be an L shape. They, over time, sold it to the property to the east, which made their lot too small for the zone requirements. It is a deep lot with access off of 1600 South. So in the R65 zone, it has to be 125% of that zone's requirement because it is a deep lot. So this shows what the current plat, you can see how it was an L shape. This is what the proposed plat is. And this will make both lots buildable. And it gives lot 1 a little extra square footage to meet the zone requirements for the deep lot. This shows what it looks like from the front and the back. And did you have any questions for me on this one? It's basically cleaning up some property lines. As if I go back to this one, you can see those blue lines in the middle, those are kind of, these are both lots of record, so they've never been platted before. So over time, this has been sold here and sold there, and so these lot lines will all be cleaned up with this new proposed plat.
The question or I still don't quite follow what we're doing here. Maybe you can re-explain it
Sure, so they
for
were,
the slow of mind like myself.
no, not a problem. They're both lots of record. And in the past, part of lot 1 was sold to lot 2.
Which
Because-
one's lot 1?
Lot 1 is the squarish one on the left. Lot 2 is, I can make it bigger.
The long skinny one?
The lot 1 was part of the plat, Cheryl,
Yes.
that's part of the deep lot, right?
Thank you, yes. So they did quit claim deed it to lot 2. So it made lot 1 too small to be a deep lot in this R65 zone. So they are now, you can see how the line goes down and then kind of juts over a little tiny bit. They're given enough square footage for it to meet the minimum requirements of the lot. So they will both be buildable lots now. They're also, over time, with lot 2 has been, if we go back, you can see where lot 2 has kind of those weird green lines in the middle of it. But those are what the county shows the property lines are. So we are cleaning up all that with this new proposed plat. Does that make it more clear as mud?
Yeah.
And there's
I guess the property in the front, 450 East, and this roadway, I wasn't following how they get to their lots and.
Yeah, so they come in off of 1600 South. You can see that driveway between 434 and 450 East. That's how
Right.
they will access that lot, 444 East in the back. That 444 East was, and those 4 lots were all part of one plat. So that particular lot is now being vacated, and a new subdivision, including the property to the east, will be created.
Okay, so that drive, is that a city road or a private
No,
drive?
it's just a drive access for the 2 deep lots in the back. So 440 East and 444 East will have access off of that, and 450 East in the future, and 434 East comes off of 1600 South, so they don't access off of that.
So the long skinny one already has a building on it. You're trying to make it so that 444 East can be built on.
Mhm. It's because they sold part of it to the property to the east, and when they did that, they made their lot too small.
The driveway, yeah, I can see. 440 East has a driveway that goes all the way to it, not 444 East, okay.
Yeah, so they both will access off of that. 444 East hasn't been developed yet, but it will. That's why they're trying to make this lot, so they can build on it.
Was there an existing easement for that drive so they can use
Mhm.
it?
Yes,
If you go back to the plat,
that is
Cheryl, you
shown on
can-
the current plat. Oops. Want to make it bigger, because you can see that there is
Easement.
that drive, that, I guess you'd call it grayed out area is the access for those 2 lots in the back.
So that looks like it's actually larger than
Yeah,
it
how
is
wide
right
is that?
now.
It was larger at the time, and then they
Yeah.
sold it to the property to the next to them to be, neighborly, and not realizing that by doing that, made their property unbuildable. And so they've been working now with the property owner to try to get a little bit of that back to make their lot now buildable, and that's kind of the issue that they ran into when they realized that now their lot was kind of, unbuildable. They really thought, now they knew we required them to go through this step, but it really was unbuildable in the future. They couldn't sell it because you couldn't do anything with it. This resolves that issue. It makes their lot buildable, and it then codifies, and by subdividing that long skinny lot, makes that whole as well. Because they basically bought into an illegal subdivision by buying a part of that. I don't want to get into those big terms, but this resolves all the issues that we have as a city.
That help?
Okay. It clarified now? Okay.
Slow brain is caught up.
It's okay. Is the applicant here and would they like to come forward?
I'm here.
Do you have
I
anything you'd
just
like?
wanted to be always clear, because that is a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we finally got it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So any further questions on this? Just
Looks like a great step to resolve this matter.
And they're doing construction behind the wall behind us, and it sounds funny. Okay, sorry. So if there's no further discussion on this item, we can move to motion. It's administrative, so we're the final approval authority on this one. Would anyone like to make a motion on item 3.2?
I motion that we vacate lot 4 of Sydney Cove Plat A and approve Sydney Cove Plat B located generally at 454 East, 1600 South in the R65 zone.
I second that motion.
Okay, so Mike moved to approve the preliminary plat for Sydney Cove Plat A and approve, sorry, wow, I can read today. Sydney Cove Plat A and approving Sydney Cove Plat B located generally at 454 East, 1600 South. And Jim seconded it. Jim, would you like to vote? Start voting?
Aye.
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 Okay. That plat is approved. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is a review and approval of the minutes for April 17th, 2024. And I did notice one thing in it on our minute meetings for last time. Mike actually abstained. He didn't vote for it. Oh, you read it.
I did.
Oh,
That's why I abstained last time.
Do you remember which item number that was? Or-
it would have been item 4.1. It was the minutes.
Oh, minutes, okay.
Yeah.
I will make that correction.
Thank you. Okay, but otherwise it looked fine, unless anyone has anything else. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that the minutes are approved from the April 17th, 2024 meeting.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Jim moved and Mike seconded that we approve the meeting minutes for April 17th, 2024. Haysom?
Aye.
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 Okay, the minutes are approved.
That'd be with revision, right?
Yeah, approved with the revision. Right?
Yeah, just a few updates on some of the big projects going on in Orem. What you're hearing right behind you is preparations tomorrow. They're bringing equipment into this building to demolish the breezeway basement out here so that we can start, well, the contractor can start building HVAC equipment down there for the library because the library feeds off of this building, which will be demolished next year. So they actually walked a robot down the stairs earlier of they call it a robot, but it's a piece of equipment that's operated remotely that will go in and chisel a wall out. And I'm excited to see it, but it's going to get really noisy tomorrow morning here, and the vibrations will be much worse than I think what you just felt. Also, on our water tank project, 188 columns are now poured of 188. So those are done. The entire floor is done. 22 of 24 wall sections are done and 36 of 52 roof sections are done. So that's a 10 million gallon water tank. We hope to get you on a tour of that when it's safe enough to get people out there once it's enclosed. So look forward to that. And then we'd like to invite you out to the Hillcrest Park grand opening on May 14th at 3 p.m. And this will be phase 2. And you can see the inside of the new facility, the new community recreation center, and the new landscaping. The asphalt's going down tomorrow and the pickleball courts are being painted as we speak. So we're this close to being done. Last of all, Cheesecake Factory has made it known that they're opening around the 1st of July. So start working out if you want some of that cheesecake. That's all I've got. Thank you.
May 14th at
That's
what
awesome.
time?
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
That's awesome. Those are some wonderful things happening and coming to Orem. So with that, would anyone like to make the motion to adjourn?
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Jim?
Aye.
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 Okay. We adjourn our meeting at 4:52 p.m.